Factor Cap. And I developed kind of a juicy question for this week, given that I'm on the panel with a Steelers fan and an Eagles fan, two teams from Pennsylvania. And so this week's Fact or Cap statement is Factor Cap. The Eagles have been Pennsylvania's best NFL team in the 21st century. And so when you think about that, that's since the year 2000. And so, Keith, I'm going to throw it to you first because this is proclaiming that Kaz's team has been the best from your state since 2000. But Factor Cap, the Eagles have been Pennsylvania's best NFL team in the 21st century.
So I'm going to be non-biased about this. Both teams have been in multiple Super Bowls since 2000, have played in numerous conference championship games. The Eagles made it the latest in, I believe, it was 06, 05, and they lost to the Patriots. And then they made it back. They beat the GOAT Tom Brady. They lost to the Chiefs, and then they beat the Chiefs last year. That's 4 Super Bowls since 2000. Steelers beat Arizona. Before that, they beat Seattle and then lost to Green Bay. So the Eagles have been in more Super Bowls since 2000 than the Steelers have. I would make the argument, I would say, if I'm being honest, I think the Eagles are because the Eagles have drafted better. They've been through multiple rebuilds. Yeah, I don't really think you can navigate and say the Steelers have been the better team in Pennsylvania. They really haven't faced the most adversity. They've had Ben Roethlisberger since 04. So for about 10, 15 years, they had a solid foundation at the quarterback position. I think the Eagles have had the more, I would say, windy road to success because they drafted Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz starts out 11-0, tears his ACL, diving into the end zone. Nick Foles on the magical run that he had, and then they go back to Carson Wentz, and it just doesn't work out health-wise or just whatever, the turnover problems. They draft Jalen Hurts. They give Jalen Hurts an opportunity. He excels, albeit if it's the roster or himself, whatever you want to go with. They take a flyer on Saquon Barkley. He has a career year last year. I think the Eagles have been the more impressive team in Philadelphia if you're just going off the stats and if you're going off the fact that Howie Roseman probably is going to go down as one of the 5 greatest GMs in the history of the National Football League, just how they've been able to draft, how they've been able to bypass that. The Eagles literally bypassed Justin Jefferson, and they still have one of the most loaded rosters in the NFL. So put that into perspective.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Kaz, Factor Cap. The Eagles have been Pennsylvania's best NFL team in the 21st century.
I would say that's fact. But respectfully, the fact you said 21st century, because obviously Pittsburgh has a lot of Super Bowls in franchise history. But I think that, he said it best. You have the 4 Super Bowls, right? You have the 2 before 2020, and you have the 2 into the 2020s. Look who we took down both Super Bowls, which is, I think, very relevant, beating Tom Brady. And that was also Tom Brady still in his prime years. His prime was a lot longer than most quarterbacks. So even though he was older, he ended up winning another Super Bowl a couple years later. So, Tom Brady really never, peaked. You know what I mean? Did he peak? Did he slow down? Yes. But, he could have played another 3 or 4 more years and been very serviceable. He was far from done. He was far from a massive decline where it's okay, Tom Brady, it's time to hang him up, like we've seen with other players. So I think taking down Brady, I think taking down Mahomes with a lot of adversity. Again, a lot of adversity. All that pressure. Jalen Hurts isn't a good quarterback. The Eagles are just, pretty much a polished turd. Yeah, they got a bunch of guys around. Pretty much it was a Jalen Hurts conversation. It was, okay, well, this is just a running back playing quarterback against potentially the best quarterback of all time if Patrick Mahomes ends up surpassing Tom Brady. So it's you look at it, just those 2 Super Bowls alone, 2017 when we won, and then you look at, last year where we won, and then you look at 2 years ago where we almost won, which doesn't count, but almost won. It's been an uphill battle. It has not been easy. This year or this past season, I've been I've been talking a lot of shit on Twitter. Very, very optimistic. I'm sure you probably remember it, but I was like, yo, we're going to beat the shit out of the Chiefs. I wasn't saying it to try to just hope for it. I was like, dog, there's no way. Like from how I did feel personally, from how I feel like I know the team, because we watch our players every year. We think we know these guys in real life. We act like they're our actual friends, right? Because that's what crazy fans do. But I'm like, I know these guys. They're winning this game, and they did just that. But like, never since the Eagles have, been relevant, which in the early 2000s when we went on that tear with Andy Reid and going to back-to-back NFC Championship games and the Super Bowl, and then fast forward to the 2020s, 2017, where we're doing kind of the same thing. Like, we've never just been like a team where it's like, oh yeah, the Eagles are going to go out there and win this game. It's always been like, well, they're playing this guy, playing Tom Brady twice, playing Mahomes twice. Think about that alone. Tom Brady, Mahomes. So the greatest of all time twice, and then potentially the greatest quarterback of all time. I think that right there kind of just sets it apart from Pittsburgh's success over the last 20 plus years. And again, it's from a place of respect. You look at Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin to this day has never had a losing season. So they've had some very consistent years, but at some point you have to decide what separates these teams. The Eagles have had some down years, a lot of years of injury-prone quarterbacks, just guys getting injured, just not having the best team because of so many different situations. The Chip Kelly incident where he came in and completely dismantled, Michael Vick, who was still in, a part of his prime, LaShawn McCoy in his prime, and Deshaun Jackson in his prime. It's like we went through stuff like that. Pittsburgh,
that was a super team.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, which the super team that didn't pan out, but that's neither here nor there.
Nnamdi Asomugha.
And we had another one too. It was Nnamdi, and we also had Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, I think it was. It was just a bunch of guys.
Vince Young was on that team.
Vince Young, yep. Yeah, it was, man, that was a wild time.
And I would say the other thing about the Eagles, Shaun and Kaz, is that at one point had that killer B squad, and they left so many playoff wins off the table. You got to give the Eagles their flowers, because the Eagles this generation, specifically this decade, when they go, they finish the job most of the time. They win the games that people talk about that you need to win in the postseason. The Steelers have not done that the last 10 or so years.
Yeah. And so just to finish up, like, again, it's from a place of respect. It's like, again, the consistency with Mike Tomlin, we can't ignore that. We can't ignore the fact that they've been to what you said, 3 Super Bowls, I think it was. And so it's like, that's a very successful, that's a successful accomplishment, just to even be there in the last 20, 25 years. And, to also get a Super Bowl out of that as well. So I think if you were to compare the Steelers to any other team outside of the Eagles, you probably more often than not, give the Eagles that slight edge if that team that we would mention was in Pennsylvania. But between the two in Pennsylvania, I think that you got to just kind of give the edge to the Eagles. And some of that might be just a little bit of recency bias. So,
yeah, when I wrote this, I initially was thinking to myself, like, this is cap. It's been the Steelers. Not even because of the recency bias of the Eagles' recent Super Bowl, but I thought about the fact that they both had 2 Super Bowl championships in this century. And then I thought about how Mike Tomlin has been so consistent, as you talked about, Kaz. But Kaz and Keith both helped change my mind that this is a fact. The Eagles have been Pennsylvania's best NFL team in the 21st century. And where it was nailed on the head for me is the competition in which the Eagles had to face to win those 2 rings. The GOAT, Tom Brady, arguably the future GOAT, as Gary would say, the baby GOAT in Patrick Mahomes. You beat both of those guys, it's a hard resume to top. Then you compare that, Keith, to the Steelers' 2 Super Bowl wins. They beat Matt Hasselbeck and old Kurt Warner. And so...
Well, I just want to play devil's advocate here. The real question that we should be talking about in this podcast is the fact that this is twice now that the alleged baby GOAT that your buddy likes to call him on this podcast has been outplayed in 2 Super Bowls by 2 different quarterbacks. So I don't know about this GOAT conversation we keep throwing around here. Like, I don't know where it's at. I'm looking for the resume. The body of work's not showing up because Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback in that dome the last year. So I don't know about this baby goat stuff.
Well, I mean, Tom Brady, he did have 7 rings, but he also had 3 losses in the Super Bowl. He had that.
But he was never outplayed. He was never outplayed to the extent that Mahomes has been outplayed in those 2 Super Bowls, in my opinion.
Well, for me, the Chiefs were just super undermanned against the Bucs in that Super Bowl, especially on the offensive line, and so Mahomes couldn't really do much. Like there was that iconic photo where Mahomes is diving to his right and he's literally midair as he sidearm slings it, and like that photo basically summarizes that Super Bowl. And so, like, I take it on the chin. I said to Kaz and Kevin before this year's Super Bowl, it's going to be deja vu. Just like how the 49ers got a rematch against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the Eagles had that, but the Eagles actually handled their business, and they not only beat them, but they stomped them the fuck out. And so, like, that's where, for me, it's a difference maker, because not only did the Eagles beat that guy that Tom Brady also beat, because, like, okay, you can say what you want about how Mahomes played, but up until this year, the only other quarterback to beat Mahomes 1v1 in the Super Bowl was the greatest of all time.
The real GOAT.
So,
the real GOAT.
The current GOAT. And so
the real GOAT. The forever GOAT.
For Jalen Hurts to lead the Eagles to that stomping, I mean, this is a fact. The Eagles have been Pennsylvania's best NFL team in the 21st century. When you go back into the 90s, the 80s, and especially the 70s, that's where it gets a little murky there. But, you know, the Steelers were the greatest team to start the NFL up until the Cowboys and Niners had their runs as well. And so I know, Keith, your dad, Pete, would be screaming at the heavens right now, like, why are we cutting it off at 2000? Well, you got to go back. We got to include the whole history.
He thinks we're cooked right now. We'll get into that later. He thinks we're cooked.
All right, well, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right